your story empower your life. Join me as I speak to many people around the globe and understand how the empowerment of their story led to the transformation of their life. My name is Rochelle Harlington, and this is the Transformational Soul Talks. This podcast is sponsored by Campground TBD.
Hi, I'm Misty Lee at Campground TBD and my favorite nonprofit, Hayden's Ray. Sometimes we need to fast from society, fast from our relationships, fast from our distractions, fast from the things that are clouding our mind from clarity that may be causing frustration or doubt. Fasting is a beautiful way to do that, and you don't have to give up food unless you want to. At Campground TBD, we offer a safe space in nature for you to come and fast from what you want to, be filled with organic nourishment, body, mind, and soul. Can't wait to see you here at campgroundtbd.com.
Hi, I'm Rochelle, and welcome to the Transformational Soul Talks. So I have a question for you. What happens when you begin to heal emotionally? What comes up for you? What scares you? Well, my guest today dedicates her work to those who struggle with addictive behavior, pain cycles, writer's block, limiting beliefs by addressing and honing in on the self-love, relief from addictions, misfiles, and old disempowering stories. She encourages everyone to write a story they do want daily until it is true, and then keep writing. She works virtually or in person at her private campground in Western Arkansas. She is a #1 international bestselling author, acts as an author doula to make self-publishing attainable to all. My dear friend and collaborator, and a woman who speaks the same language as I do when it comes to thinking, writing, creating a better feeling, empowering story for yourself. I want to introduce my dear, dear friend, Misty Riston. Welcome.
Oh my gosh, you almost making me cry in that intro. Thank you for that. That was very lovely.
Welcome. Well, you are. I mean, I think we collaborated with Lachelle, and now we're collaborating again. And we've always kind of, had that conversation back and forth and supported each other. And you also helped with a beautiful book that was a collaboration with the lovely Dina Fortune and Lily Lee. So it's an ongoing collaboration and friendship. So I love it. I really do.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So I brought you on because, we do speak the same language. We talk a lot about the empowerment of your story. And a lot of times people, they want to emotionally heal, but they're not quite sure where to begin. They don't know where to begin, actually, a lot of them, because you and I both know, because we listen to people's languages. We listen to what they're saying, not so much the different languages, but how they're speaking, what they're saying. And just by that alone, you know where they are in their life. They're either disempowering themselves or they're empowering themselves. And it's such a simple thing, but unless you understand that, someone doesn't know where to start. What would you say to someone that is begun this journey and is sitting there thinking, I really want to heal, I want to get through this, but how do I do this?
That's a big one. If you really want to, I would ask myself, this is what I ask myself, do I really want to? Sometimes I really don't want to. Sometimes there are things I still want to be sad about for a little while, and that's okay. You may go through a breakthrough. You may take a moment to lick your wound, so to speak. But just being very serious with myself, am I ready to let this story go? Am I ready to be open-minded that the story I could have gotten it wrong. I've been wrong before about things out of nowhere, so that I could be wrong about this story. And so the first question, like to answer your question, is be serious. Am I ready to let this thing go? And that might mean that we have to let some people go. It might mean we have to show up differently for ourselves. But the #1 way to ask that question and get the answer is, can I visualize a moment in a life where I have let go of that, where I'm free of this addiction, or I'm free of this extra weight, or I'm able to function with a grief or a diagnosis, but just, can I even visualize it? Am I willing to play that game?
And you and I both have had conversations. Would you say, and I'm going to push this back to you, would you say this is an easy thing to do? because you know, and I know we've both been through our own emotional healing. Um, so maybe you could share a little bit with our audience who are either listening or viewing how that feels for you.
I will, and I still tell every addict I work with, and I use that term very lovingly. These could be people who've never done a drug, but everyone who's got a story they just won't let go of. I, I, well, now I've forgotten exactly how you worded the question, but the answer is it's the easiest, hardest. You asked how easy was it? It's the easiest, hardest thing I've ever done. And it's
Mm,
like kind of asking an Olympic gold medalist, how hard was it for you to win? Well, that day, it may not have been hard at all, but they spent 5 years training those muscles to be ready to perform in that event. So when I decided to rewrite my story, it was the hardest, easiest thing I ever had to do because I had to start building the muscles that would allow me to compete emotionally at an Olympic level.
I love that. That's really great because people not sure where to begin, and it's about beginning to write that new story. And did your story change? Was it just one story that you wrote down and you said, okay, this is my story, and that's the story you still hold today, or did it change? Because
I love that. I promise we didn't practice these questions. And I love that question because I have people that I've worked with that will say, no, I said my goal was X, Y, Z, and I'm not giving up to my goal. And they're realizing that X, Y, Z is only the first page of a 200-page menu. But they forgot that there could be something out there even greater. I've been wrong about things before. I might be wrong about what is the even greatest thing I've ever thought of.
Mhm.
So I write all of the greatest. Today, I might live in a marshmallow house. Tomorrow, I might live in one made of banana splits. The next day, it may be made out of whipped cream, but I'm going to continue to find things that would tickle my fancy if they all came true. Because it's not about were my boots blue or turquoise. It's about how I felt in them, how my butt looked in them, who I was dancing with, how did I feel on the way home, how my body moved. So it's about so much more than a very specific one item on a checklist. So it still changes every single day. And the
Mm.
faster I change it, the faster it comes true. The
Oh, I like
faster I
that.
allow it to flow, the faster it comes true.
I love that. And would you say that as you've started to change that story, has it shifted your life in different directions? Like has it changed? Has you stopped a couple of times and gone, what am I doing? Or has it just been a flow of, easy going?
It is a constant, what am I doing? Often several times a day. Yeah, I'm sober from alcohol. I'm sober from a lot of old stories, and I've been through a lot of letting go of things. And a lot of times it is one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, whether it is, what am I doing? Why did I sign up for this? And then but the clarity of that muscle memory and you and I both have a very strong daily writing practice, is that I'm never more than one day out of the gym. My
Mhm.
mind is always doing this. So if I have a natural human day where there is that, what are you doing? Why at your age are you even thinking about, those little things that like to come in? I'm only one day out of the gym, so I'm not completely derailed. I'm keeping my hands on home base. And then I just acknowledge that. You know what? That's so funny that you think that. Why don't you read in your journal and talk to that lady? So it's a lot of being real, again, real honest with yourself. What am I concentrating on? Where is my story going? And am I willing to allow it to grow with me? And
Mm.
it's a powerful place to get to that point where I was willing to say what I really wanted, not just what would fix the problem today.
And how, if I may ask, and of course it's up to you whether you choose to answer, how long ago was that? Was it a long time ago and you're still changing that story, or was there something that was a catalyst to make you change that story?
Yes, and yes. Interestingly, I have probably done this since I was a really small child because I always wrote, I always kept a diary, went through a point where I quit because someone took it and used it against me. And, that's
Oh.
a very normal diary wound for people. And then we got the internet, and I started keeping a little blog back in the day. And so I've kind of always been telling a story. I had a disabled child who gave me a really great opportunity to imagine my dream life. When you're just holding a baby for days and days on end, you need a good imagination. So that was one of the blessings that came out of what may have been considered a difficult mothering, is I got really good at an already vivid imagination. Um, What I didn't do is once I got so focused on making money or losing weight or whatever one single item was, then I would forget to create the story around it. I would just pick one, and it's like one cast member in a movie. It's not enough to support the show. And so it didn't matter how much money I make. I was lonely and I was unhappy and I was overweight and unhealthy. Then I got healthy, but then I was like, I kept just trading until finally I just said, just write the whole story. Literally everything. What kind of coffee pot? What kind of music is playing? What does it smell like? Who do you eat breakfast with? Who makes it? And that's where my stories began to really craft and turn into it. Now, the catalyst was I moved out into the mountains and I had just pen and paper to keep me occupied. So there's a point to this. I took all my old notebooks out of my old house that my children had been raised in. So some of them were old school books that they didn't finish the spiral notebooks of. So I took every piece of paper with me because I knew I was going to work on my manuscript. When I got up there, I noticed that each one of my journals had 2 or 3 weeks worth of writing in it, and then it would trickle away. And it would start with something went wrong. I'm writing about how I'm going to do things differently. And then about the time I would resurface and be like, okay, I'm starting to feel good again, I would
Hmm.
stop writing. So I did
Ah,
all that work to get my muscles, and then I just quit working out after that. So in sobriety, we always have to have action. You don't just stop drinking. You're going to fill that void. We're very creative people. So same with this. When I realized that my journal wasn't working, I would just stop using it and it would leave this void. So then I'd go back and pick up old habits to fill that void in. And changing my journaling practice to daily was a catalyst that made manifestation come in faster, clarity come in faster. So that, to answer your question, a daily practice of writing was my absolute catalyst.
wow. Now, for anybody who's out there listening, and they say, well, how does that relate to emotional healing? What would be your response to that?
So I have it's something that you and I are working on, but success for grief. I lost a child about a year and a half ago, and the night before I knew he was going to pass, it it kind of, so-called dawned on me. It was very clear to me, you need to get out everything you've ever taught about anything. When I was bartending, I learned how to speak there, like identify, triage the person. Where are they at and what kind of conversation are they going to heal best from? When I was in insurance and financial services, same thing. Where's the person at? Where's the client at? And how best can I serve
Mm.
them? Then with sobriety, same thing with weight loss. So when Hayden passed, I realized that I needed to do the same thing. I needed to be able to tell a story of a mother who lost a child 1 year past and who was thriving and serving at her highest level, surrounded. And I was very specific about and I magically or miraculously or manifested, I lived that very life and have
Mhm.
had to now expand that dream because everything that I put on that paper has already occurred.
Oh,
So the the well, that's enough for that. I could go on about that topic for a really long time.
no, that's good. I love that. Now, if you've worked with a lot of authors, and as I said at the beginning, in the intro, you're what you call an author's doula, and you support them. Have there been, and of course, I don't expect you to share names, but have there been any situations where the author is stuck, in a sense where they don't want to move forward with the book? They feel like they have all this information, they start it, and then they're like, no, actually can't do this. Have you ever had that?
Absolutely. That's why I use the term doula. It's a lot like having a baby. Um, there's going to be a lot of pain and a lot of, but when you stay with it and you teach your nervous system, it's okay to heal and it's okay to continue to ask for more. When you teach your nervous system that's okay, then you can have your baby really calmly and you can take on really big new projects without it being terrifying that your body is about to explode. So in healing, it's the same within publishing. There is this cycle of I absolutely want to be through this story, published it or heal from it or change it. And then there's a point where there's an angry, where your old vibe, your old human, your old self, whatever language you want to use, everybody
Mhm.
who was you up until this second feels very offended that you're going to call them wrong and take this path of healing. So that ability to stop your mind, and especially in the healing process, and say, I'm going to be mad. If when people stay here, I tell them in the next few days, you're going to be mad at me. It's not
Oh,
about me. I promise. It doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. But if you are able to be mad while you're here based on how I'm just moving about my normal life, then that's what we want to talk about, because when we unlock that key, then you really unlock a lot of secrets to how you work in your life. So in writing, if you will unlock those keys that say, I don't want to do this, and just simply say, I don't want to do this writing practice. Rochelle and Misty said it would change my life if I did it, so I'm going to do it. They said if I write down 100 things I'm grateful for, something magical will happen. And write them anyway.
Yeah.
And do it the second day and do it the third day. And Rochelle will tell you the same thing. By the fourth day, you'll be going, where's my paper? I want my affirmations. I want to start my day in this really great energy. And then every once in a while, that other voice will come in and I'll start my day. I am only writing today because I said I would. And then by the end of it, I'm free flowing and ideas are coming to me. But just being willing to go, I'm mad. So let me write about that, because if I can figure out why I let anything in the whole world get me mad, then I can find a lot about myself that will help me grow.
Mm, I love that. Now, I've always wondered this. Do you think that that type of writing should be something they do in school?
Yes. And I, I homeschooled. So I have a lot
Okay.
of tendency to not to vote too heavily on what they should or shouldn't, be
Hmm.
doing. But I think just in our family life, in your home, we used to play best and worst. Like, what was the worst thing that happened today? How can we make it the best? Like, like we used to play that with my kids when we were little, when they were little. But just being able to say, what do you want? I want a Ferrari. But then what else would you want? Oh, Ferrari would be the only thing I want. No, keep going. What kind of garage
Mm,
do you want to put it in? What do you want the floors to be made of? Like, just letting them never get rid of thinking even bigger. And
hmm.
as you and I know from a course you and I are doing together right now, at the beginning of the year, I was coming up with a $100 value that turned into a $10,000 value because I was allowed to step it up.
Mm,
And and so had I been solely like, nope, I said I was going to do this course and it was going to be $100, like I would have not been able to serve as many people as I'll be able to now.
hmm.
And all I'm doing is opening it up to more people. So it's very powerful if you'll just teach within your own family. Let's dream of even bigger.
Mm,
What would we do if we were on family vacation right now? What would we do? How would we make that even better? How would we make that even better?
yeah.
And then you will find that also, side note, in your family, it will help you find loopholes, because they'll say things, little kids especially will say, because then I could spend a whole day with daddy instead of him going to work. Oh,
Hmm.
okay, we need to add quality time. Or because then you would be listening to me and no one else. Oh, okay. Like you can learn some secrets about what your kids are missing if you let them keep playing make believe all the time.
I love that because that's something kids are so, I know as a kid, I used to love make believe because their imagination, and it's in the same thing that you and I are working on, imagination is massive. And I feel as we get older, we tend to like kind of close that, make believe down. And I think there should be something that encourages us to keep doing it, writing and believing and creating, because you and I both know that the more that you think about it, things seek an expression, as you and I both know, and then they become material, it starts to, or
Mm-hmm.
matter, it starts to actually happen. And this has happened to me, this has happened to you. It just depends on how clear you're going to be with your details and how big your imagination can be. So, what is next for you? What is coming down the pipeline? What is happening in Misty's world? I'd love to hear whatever you'd like
Well,
to.
I thank you for letting me share. I am operating a place called Wellness in the Woods on my private campground, and we also host a healing space for my son's nonprofit, Hayden's Ray Healing Spaces. So those spaces are for people who are going through something. I'm smiling because they're usually not coming to me with a smile on their face, but they're coming to me at a place where they're so ready to break free of that I
Mhm.
know who I'm getting ready to meet is that their next story, at the beginning of their next story. So sometimes people will just show up. I've gotten a call from someone that has written with me in the past and just said, I'm 3 hours away and I need to get away from my family today. Come on. So those people we don't charge. We make sure that we keep funds so that we can feed them highly organic food. They can come here and they can still do infrared sauna and grounding and meditation. They don't have to give up their normal health routine to also take care of their spiritual health. So
Mhm.
we do that. And then the wellness in the woods part, which is the part that's exciting me this year, is being able to go back to what I used to do 20 years ago when I was teaching other salespeople how to be more sales likable, how to be more sales likable so that people would want to come to you. And then I went and switched over into helping people with sobriety tracks, then into the weight loss tracks. And then all for the last 30 years, there's been that organic nourishment through the background of it through Hayden. So now I get to put literally all of my skills together and side note, live my exact perfect life every single day where I'm feeding people, spending time with the highest quality people in nature, surrounded by wildlife. It's very interesting. If you look back, I think I published that about 2.5 years ago. And I moved here a couple months after that. And then
Mm.
here we are. Like that, this has been one of my fastest, most complete manifestations that I can like specifically track from start to finish.
Now, I have a question about that. Why do you think this manifested so quickly?
Um, oh, I know for sure. I got so very clear on it. In the past, I would have a very clear vision. This place, red roof, green, red house, green roof, pond. I had all the things that it had. I saw it in my head. Even when I saw it, I thought, well, those don't go together. Mountains and forest and pasture and waterfalls and wildflowers all around. So in my mind, I thought I was making up a make believe
Mm.
scenario. However, I have all of those things here on my property. So it's kind of an interesting anomaly. But what I did in the past is I would get really clear on my vision and I would go, oh, here's a piece of something for sale or a job offer or a date or whatever. And it's kind of really close to what I was wanting. So, I mean, no one's perfect. So I'll just go away from what I said my chief aim was, or my definite focus, or my vision, or my goal. And I'll settle over here hoping it changes. And then I'll get mad later when that scenario or person doesn't live up to my expectations, and then I'll come back over here. So a couple years ago up on the mountain, I decided this is the vision. And until I expand it in a place that it would include you, if you're not in there, I cannot allow myself to be outside of my chief aim. And I use the
Mm.
terms of sobriety. It's an absolute matter of sobriety. I know myself well enough. If I take a sip of negativity and I let it get in my body, then I might not come back up again. I don't want to get sober again. I don't want to re-grieve over my son. I mean, not that you ever quit, but we're getting along fabulously, my grief journey and I. So I don't want to do anything that would purposely, so I just don't veer away. This is my vision. Are you in the vision? Oh, you're not. Okay, I love you. It's just like waving on someone at the interstate when they take an exit. I don't get mad that they pulled off to get gas. We've just been driving around for a couple hours side by side, and now you've pulled off your exit. But what we tend to do is stay on the road and then get angry when they take their exit or that they won't come with us to ours. And just knowing the clarity of exactly what you want, then it's so easy to compare. Will this take me there or will it not?
I love that. And again, you can slightly change the things if you wish to add stuff. If you wish to add stuff, would you say so?
Oh yeah, and it happens. And sometimes it happens in the most comical way. I wrote in one day that I wanted to be able to look out and see cows in my property,
Mm-hmm.
and because I think they're cute and fuzzy. And within 24 hours, and this one was kind of like documented because there was a writing group here that I shared my cow story with. And then we get up the next morning and the fence had gotten down at the people's property next door and all their cattle were in my front yard.
Oh
And they were
gosh.
like, well, look at you manifesting. Another time I wrote a story and I
Mm.
even wrote, but I guess I'll never be dating unless the guy drops in from above. Okay, two
Oh,
days later,
wow.
there's a guy parasailing across the property and goes over my property. And I was like, oh, don't fall. Please do not. I didn't mean that. I retract all of that energy. Do not fall from above. So if you're
Good.
intended to meet me, I need you to come around and meet me at the front door. Don't fall from above. So sometimes it happens like that. And then sometimes because I'm very authentic in my conversation, and you and I have
Mhm.
these mastermind conversations, I share who I am all the time. And someone will say, I know this. And then you can all of a sudden I get to incorporate cool new ideas that I didn't even have before. I weren't even in my imagination to have. So it's gotten so much better than how I originally viewed it. It just it was my willing to be expansive though.
Wow, I love that. I love that. Now, I have a question, and I haven't asked this question in a long time, and I think about a year or two since you were on my show, and I'm curious. So I remember asking you this. I said, if you could sit down and have dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be and why? And I remember I have the original recording, so I'm curious if those people have changed.
Well, I can tell you now it's changed, and I want to be, even though I'm not emotionally, since I don't mind my emotions. My son never spoke.
Okay.
So dead or alive, it would be him. I feel him, and I feel like we communicate at such a crazy high level. Like I feel his sense of humor even, but I would love to hear, like, I would just love to hear his voice and hear him say
Hmm.
something to me. Even if he said, why did you make me, even if he has a complaint to serve, I would like to hear that. So aside from him, um,
Three people.
future talk, I would like to talk to my granddaughter in 50 years. And statistically, I won't be here for that, but I would love to hear from her at her 50th birthday.
Nice.
Um, the third person, and it's not for, I would like to talk to someone who is just uber wealthy and pure hearted. And I don't have a person in mind in our world recently. A lot of the things that we thought were there were not.
Hmm.
But I really would. I know I don't have any bitterness towards the uber wealthy. So I really would like to understand, because I know how I want to give back to people. You and I
Hmm.
talk about how we help, how we give, but I want to know what it would be like to think, I'm going to build this campground, one in every state. Or,
Hmm.
like I want to know what those, when you add zeros and zeros and zeros. And so I really would love to have a conversation with someone about being at this place in my life where I have the wisdom I have the very clear in who I am and my higher self, and also have the ability to help. Like also be able to say, buy it all, buy all that land. Let's do it all. Like
I
I
love
would love
that.
to have that kind of conversation.
Wow, what a great dinner party that would be. I
So
love
in my
that.
quantum writing, I have a story about a woman named Charlotte, and she is a woman who's just beside herself with wealth. And in my story, she lost a child named Hayden, and that's how she finds out about us. And I wrote that she just came and said, I'll pay for this much if she can give me the numbers by tomorrow morning, because she wanted to see how serious I was. And I was like, I've already got the whole vision drawn out. So that's what sparked me to really search everything I want. How much does it cost? How big is it? Does it even fit in the space? Like
Mm,
I'm very clear on my vision now.
I love that. I love that. So, for anybody who's listening and again watching, if they want to get in touch with you, where can they find you and on what platforms?
Facebook is by far the easiest place. I'm the only Misty Lee, Mistilei, Misty Lee Riston. I'm Campground TBD, like to be determined. And then Hayden's Ray is our nonprofit, and I have all three of those. I'm on the quantum writing group. Rochelle and I have a really cool group that's studying the Napoleon Hill book, 16 Laws of Success. That if you could reach out to either one of us, we could add you there. But Facebook is the easiest, or campgroundtbd@gmail.com. And I would love to have anyone who would like to come out and experience the healing and transformation here.
I love that. I love it. Thank you so much, Misty, for coming on, for sharing your beautiful wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thank you.